Hi everyone and welcome back to the garden. In today's quick video I'm talking about one of my favourite cannas. I know I've used the word favourite a lot, but this genuinely is one of my favourites, and it's this here, a Canna Musifolia. And this one's actually quite a rarity in that it's a canna, which are usually grown for the flowers, that is actually very unlikely to actually flower in the UK. But the main reason you grow this is actually for the leaves alone. And Musifolia actually means banana-like leaves. So essentially this is a plant, it's a canna, so it grows from a rhizome every single year, but it reaches huge heights and has massive banana-like leaves. So it's a really great plant for filling in those gaps in your garden between bananas and other exotics, and it grows these huge leaves that just look absolutely perfect with the whole tropical jungle theme. So although it's late June, it's not too late to add cannas that will make a real impact to your tropical garden or display. And this one, I actually bought it in full growth this past week, and it was from the Secret Garden of Louth. And if you don't know Jennifer and Roger, they've got an absolutely incredible garden. The amount of effort that goes into their overwintering and planting out again is absolutely unreal. And some of the planting combinations are just really fantastic. So if you don't know, they've got a Facebook page, and I'll link to this in the description below. They've also just started an Instagram, and they've got a YouTube that they put a few bits up to. So again, I'll put a link to those in the description below. I actually went to the garden a couple of years ago and took these photos, and you can see just how incredible it is. In the late summer period, when all the plants are at the absolute biggest and the light's just starting to drop. It really was an incredible garden then, and I'm sure the display this summer will be even better still. But definitely, if you're in the Lincolnshire region, then check them out on NGS, or even further afield. Definitely get yourself booked in and get a trip over there later this summer. You won't regret it. So the main reason why Canna Musifolia is such a great canna is just the sheer size of it. From a decent sized rhizome, you can get to a plant that's over 2 metres tall, maybe even pushing 3 metres by late summer, early autumn in a single season. That's absolutely incredible. So it's worth getting one that's already growing. And what I generally say for cannas is it's worth buying a plant that's already got the leaves, that's already starting to grow, or from a place that you trust. And places like Heart Canna are a great place to buy rhizomes from. And when it comes to actually buying plants in growth, it's better to wait till later in the year and again get them from a trusted seller, someone like Turnip Tropical, or a good local seller who you know and can personally vouch for their experience in growing cannas. And the main reason for that is that you don't get a plant that's infected by canna virus. So to summarise quickly, canna virus is generally transmitted by aphids, and it's a sort of disfigurement on some of the leaves. You'll see markings, little spots, little splotches. It might not kill the plant, but it definitely doesn't look good. And that disease can be passed on from canna to canna. So it's really important to not buy virused ones. So obviously if they're in full growth, you can see that that plant's healthy, the seller can see that it's healthy, and then everyone's happy. But if you buy a plant as a shriveled up rhizome, you don't know what you're getting that way. You might have a virus canna. So that's the main reason why I recommend people don't just buy them from supermarkets or generic sort of catalogue shops. Go to a specialist or buy the plant in full growth where you can actually see the leaves and know that it's great. So if you just bought a Canna Musifolia this year, a healthy and happy plant, there's a few things that you can do to get the best growth possible out of it this summer. So firstly, canna's like a good rich soil. So ideally, you're going to plant your canna into the ground. You can grow them in tubs, and for something like a Musifolia that's got the potential to really grow big, I'd definitely recommend a bigger pot. So probably something in the 30 litre region, so something maybe that size but about that tall. You want quite a big pot, and you want to fill it with a good rich compost. Likewise, if you're planting your canna into the ground, again, a good rich soil is great. So ideally, you would have gone back to last winter and dug a load of manure in, or just laid it on the surfaces of mulch and let the worms drag it down. But if you haven't done that, then you can always add some at the time of planting, or you can add lots of chicken manure pellets and fertilisers to really help it on this summer. But the main thing is a good rich soil and also plenty of water. Cannas over the summer, the more water you give them, the faster they grow. It really is as simple as that. And obviously if you're growing it in a potted container, that's definitely an important factor. Now, when it comes to feed, cannas are very, very greedy. And if you want to get a big Musifolia with plenty of those massive banana-like leaves, or you've got a flowering canna that you really want to hurry up and get some real flowers out of it before the end of summer, then feeding is definitely the way to do it. Personally, I tend to use probably like a tomato feed, something like that mainly, but I also use a liquid seaweed. And what I've done, if you go to the description below, I put a few links to my favourite feeds. But like I say, a good tomato feed or a liquid seaweed really helps them get going. Max has just come out to join me, surveying the garden. But yeah, another reason why Canna Musifolias are such a great canna is because of how fast the rhizome grows under the ground. And that's great because it means you can buy one and by the end of the summer it'll already have bulked up from something maybe that size up to something about that size. And that's great because it means the following summer you'll have an absolutely huge clump of them that will make a real statement in your garden. Or you can split it up and then you've got plants to spread around the garden. It's completely up to you. And when it comes to actually digging the plants up at the end of the year, that is something that I'd recommend. I know in theory, if you live somewhere mild or if it's a mild winter, you can get away with overwintering some cannas under the ground. But personally, we're in North Lincolnshire, so definitely not the warmer part of the country. I'd recommend digging them up pretty much wherever you are, unless you're in the centre of London or right on the south coast. And that's not just for actually keeping them safe over winter, but helping them grow in spring. So personally what I do is I dig them up and put them into a pot that's slightly larger than the rhizome, and I fill it with some compost. And the important thing is they're not a dahlia, so you don't let them dry out over winter. They're basically, because they grow in the tropics, they're not used to having a dormant season as such, and the tubers don't want to dry out completely, or the rhizome should I say, they don't want to completely dry out over winter. So you need to keep them just ticking over very slowly. They won't put on active growth, they might put up a couple of new shoots, but the important thing is to just keep that soil just slightly moist, definitely on the drier side, and also keep them frost free. So you really want to protect that rhizome or tuber from completely freezing through, because that would kill the plant stone dead. So really the best thing for them is to put them in a polytunnel or a greenhouse, anywhere where there's maybe just a bit of heat on those coldest nights, just to keep it frost free. That's all they need. But if you can keep them ticking over through winter, then they respond with absolutely massive growth in spring. So the plants that you grow in the greenhouse or the polytunnel will be so far ahead of the same plants that are in the ground. So that's the way that I prefer to do it. I like to get them started, and when there's years like this one where spring is basically put back and back and back, and it's ultimately probably late May or even June by the time you can plant them out, you've already got a good plant going, rather than just a few tiny little shoots just poking up through the ground. So just a quick video today and a few care tips on this absolute giant of a canna, Canna Musifolia. They're an absolutely amazing canna, and really the care requirements, they're no different to pretty much any other canna, but you get such massive growth from them. So like I said, you can grow them in big containers in which you'll get an absolutely giant plant by late summer, but if you put them in the ground, they'll grow even bigger still, and they make a great plant for late summer screening, just something that will actually compete with the bananas, the tetrapanax, but doesn't take a lot of overwintering space is really important, especially in the garden here. Well, pretty much anyone who's got a tropical garden, you'll know that if you've got a greenhouse or a polytunnel, it tends to get absolutely full. So plants like cannas, where you get so much summer leaf for not a lot of overwintering space, are really, really valuable. So personally, I wouldn't be without these in the summer garden here, and I'm glad I've been able to pick up a few locally that I can use to get even bigger plants next year and propagate them to spread them throughout the garden. Hopefully they're quite widely available, but if you can't find a Canna Musifolia, then Russian red is a great alternative with dark purple leaves, and again it grows really tall. And I've also put on the screen a few other names of cannas that, whilst they don't get quite as big, have great foliage and really add that jungle effect. So definitely Canna Musifolia comes recommended from me. Have a look for one and you won't regret adding it to your tropical garden this year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.